morning.
Monday morning, and it's been a beautiful weekend. How's everyone's weekend been?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Really joyful. Just some beautiful weather, and spending some time with some close friends. So that was really nice. Nice little recharge.
Yeah, and the weather. Yes, we've just been getting so much rain down here, and wind and stuff. But this weekend it didn't rain, so it was good. And I
Nice
actually
little
got
reprieve.
and I got to spend some time with my nephews at the Blowhole at Kiamba Blowhole, which was nice as well. So, and it was like there's this weird thing that happens or has been happening where the wind is so crazy that it's lifting up all of the foam from there's a channel that goes in where the blowhole is, and all the foam comes up and it just whirls around, and then it just comes like full on snow, but in big chunks of salt water.
Yeah.
Wow.
Melting. Yeah. I've got photos and videos of it. I'll put it up on Facebook. So
How fun.
yeah, the kids, they thought it was hilarious. So so today is our last live one with me for 2021. You ladies are going to continue it on, which is nice. Thank you so much. I'm having 3 weeks off from next Friday. This Friday is my last week, and then I've got 3 weeks off, which is going to be so nice. I'm sure I'll get on and do lives and stuff. I've got all these ideas to step into 2022, but so we're doing part 3 of spirituality, science, and religion. Who wants to start? Anyone want to start?
I'm blank, to be honest.
You're blank, was it?
Yeah, I'm blank. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, look, I'm happy to start. Because so there's a couple of things that I thought we might cover today. So I guess where I'm up to, and then I did want to check in with you, Elizabeth, because I think in our very first discussion you had mentioned, essentially that Jesus Christ has been such a big part of your journey, and I didn't know, and we haven't really had any opportunity to more so speak about our our individual experiences with where it sits personally for us. And so I didn't know whether we wanted to canvass some of that today, or
great idea.
Yeah, okay.
It's a great way to write it up. And because I have had some really interesting experiences, and I believe all 3 work together, and so that's a perfect combination. So go for it.
Okay, cool. And so the other thing that I thought would be really helpful for our audience and listeners in kind of wrapping this up is, and I was actually reminded of one of the retreats that Nicolette and I collaborated in, and we'd had this really glorious soul expanding day. And anyway, we're all sitting around at the end of the day, and Nicolette goes, "So Ash, what do you believe?" And just kind of gives me the floor.
Just ask a small question.
Yeah, no biggie at all. And it was kind of just one of those moments where you just kind of take it all in, and I kind of just took a deep breath, and I went, well, all right, here it is, and kind of laid out my own belief system that has been consciously cultivated. And I think that's where, I'd kind of like to hand it over to our listeners in some of their own reflection in going, well, what do I believe? And where were those earliest memories? What are the earliest memories in terms of belief, whether it's creation or learning about other cultures or, religious studies through school? But what were those earliest conversations and ideas that came to you in terms of the genesis of the world and our experience within it, because it's not until, like both you ladies know, that we go back to those earliest memories that we can even start to see those first seedings of our belief system in how we navigate the world. So yeah, so just kind of, starting people to invite on their own journey, because we've spoken about some really big philosophical concepts here, and the concepts that we're covering come from our own place of truth, because we have embarked on the soul journey. And so the beliefs that we are now the embodiment of are the conscious creation and co-creation as we have unfolded and as we have learned to dance with the universe. So yeah, and for a lot of people, they aren't at that point of being the embodiment of their conscious belief systems. So I think what makes these concepts really relevant is to go, okay, well, what are those earliest memories? So I can start to see the seedings. Then as I developed and kind of got my bearings around right and wrong, what's moral, the justice system in terms of punishment, reward, all those things, how did those layers then play out in my belief systems? And what did I ultimately subscribe to versus turn away from based on the messaging that I'm receiving? Because the difference...
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because when you say all that, like, that's definitely more than a half an hour session. and it, like, I'm listening to you and going, oh yeah, because we've all got our own story, right? With the way I love the idea, and it's come to me before in previous things, is what is your creation story? Like, what is and a lot of people don't stop to reflect what is their what are their process, what are their beliefs, and how are they navigating the world instead of what's outside of them. So it's really interesting, isn't it? Because as you talk, I'm like, oh yeah, so I had this experience that was internal for me, and then I had my auntie who was Christian who brought me into the idea of Christ, and then my brother who's very scientific that introduced me to the science, and all of that at a very young age. Like, my own internal process was I had this feeling, I think I've mentioned it on here before, where I walked past the TV and there was a replay or something about Woodstock, and I was only 7 or something like that, and I remember having this thought, oh my gosh, I've come down too late. And then going, come down from where and too late for what? Like, it was like one of those moments of, who's talking and what are you talking about? And also the whole process of, my dad was on the kidney machine, and I spent many times crying next to him, I don't want you to die. And he said, oh, I'm not going to die. Well, he died when I was 15, and I had no concept that because when he did pass, I was at school and they came and got me, and the teacher came in, took me outside, and as she turned around, I said, he's dead, isn't he? And she just like looked at, I just somehow knew. And so that was an internal understanding, and yet these other foundational processes outside that then related to my internal process.
Yes,
like,
exactly. So it's the culmination, and it's as we expand that we're able to house these separate experiences and essentially philosophical viewpoints into a coherent manner that gives us our internal compass of how to navigate the world, essentially. The world, other people, what we stand for, and what we dedicate willingly and lovingly our lives to. Because the alternative is to not dedicate your life willingly and lovingly, and then we're often cut off from the world and others in a meaningful way. And that's a really big cost. But yes, Nicolette, you're about to say something, and I'm very conscious I don't want to say.
I really resonate with what you were saying, Elizabeth, about the internal experience and the outer experience, because as you were both starting to talk about Jesus and Christ and all those kinds of things, my awareness about my own belief system is that those things for me are a very external experience. I remember going to Sunday school with my grandparents. I remember, I think I've spoken before about Mum teaching me the Lord's Prayer, but that was all very much about how to behave in certain circumstances. So it was a very external experience, and it wasn't until probably 5 years ago that I started doing my own internal work that I had the internal experience of what I call source or divine love flowing through me, where other people might call that Christ consciousness or Jesus, but
the vibration.
That framework for me is very external, and it doesn't resonate with my internal experience. But that doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge that it does for other people, and that's the framework that they may use as the pivotal point in their belief system. But yeah, it's really interesting.
It's language, isn't it? It's just, I remember I was living with a guy in Alexandria, and he had a real problem with the fact that at the time I said I didn't believe in God, and he had a huge problem with it. And then when I moved to Holloway's Beach, I had the realization that this old woman that befriended us, she became our surrogate grandmother. It was through her. She was an avid Christian. It was through her that I recognized that it was just language. What I was doing and what she was doing were the same. It was just a different interpretation of language. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Completely. And so I guess the other thing that I would encourage our listeners to kind of marinate on and is, okay, so if we know just from a biological perspective that we absorb belief systems in terms who I am, who others are, what the world is, myself within the world, and then there is like a sprinkling of what is the universe and who I am within the universe. But it's mainly those last ones where people freak out because it's such a big idea that then the blinkers come back down and they're like, nah, I'll worry about that another day. And then what that comes at the cost of is, because what I essentially observe in human beings who go, nah, that's too big, I'll leave that for another day. They live as though they're going to live forever and then panic when they see the finish line. Because deep down, they know they haven't done the work. They know they haven't absorbed everything that is yet to be absorbed. And so that's a really big price to pay. Like we're living a mortal game. And so that's when we go, these things are actually really important because they determine the quality of your life whilst you're living.
Yeah, the experiences that you're choosing to have, the joy that you're experiencing. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And it sort of goes in with what I think I said it in the last one. Oh, the first one, I can't remember. But, when I've looked and reflected on the world and what's going on, I've and you pull it down, 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 down. What I see is when we have a separation to some sort of source, that's where the chaos, that's the brokenness of society. We see ourselves as limited, and only that, that's when we're in trouble.
And
when
we limit ourselves by what we experience as our safe bubble. I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend about the fact that in 2027 we're going to be able to stay in a hotel in space. That's something that's, and what came up for me was, whenever I go into meditation myself, or whenever I lead a meditation, the framework in that is usually go down deep into the earth to ground, and go up through the sky into where the light is, right? And then I was like, but what if I was meditating from space? Like, and that's a really great example of how we make ourselves these frameworks or belief systems, or and we have to stay open and fluid, and trust that if we want to expand beyond that, we're safe to do that.
Yeah. It's breaking down all of those different, like, we don't realize how many limitations, definitions, beliefs that we've got, encrusted over the top of who we truly are, right? There's so many that we think that that's what we do believe in, or that's gospel, that's the way it is. And I've had so many different personal experiences with Jesus personally within that first framework of what I was experiencing. And the first one I remember is because I've always had Christians in my life, like always, and I've traveled a lot, so not, any particular group trying to follow me. It was just like always these different ones seeded into my life. And I remember with Margaret, she was so desperate. They were all desperate to make me Christian, to be the one to convert me, And I remember something we were having a challenge with, and I was in my house, processing it, and I was washing my hands I was washing the dishes, and I just went into total surrender, like, oh my gosh, like I just can't believe, like, the limitation that I felt from Christianity of this is the only way it is, and that all these things that I wasn't quite sure about. And so I went and laid on a bed, the first bed that was there, and Jesus came to me with his crown of thorns on, which is, I'm sure he put that there, or the energy of, because that to me was a Catholic thing, and I had never experienced Catholicism, so it wasn't something I would have physically done. And he basically said, like, why do you think it'd be any easier for you than it was for me? Like, it was like a slap in the face, like, do you think that it was easy for me to share love and light and understanding and compassion in a world that was crumbling with chaos? He was basically saying, keep going. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, the humility that came into me, and went, oh my gosh, they killed you. I'm so sorry for having these thoughts, like, woe is me. It was a really beautiful moment to, just keep going with my spiritual path and the understanding. And I've had another one like that since, that was a lot deeper. So it's you have to come back to what is within you. And like, I believe all of the spiritual texts that you can look at externally, not just Christianity, but all of them, all have the same elements of, it is within you. Open your heart. This is the connection. And that was one of the things, as we were getting ready for today, I was this morning, of thinking, what is it we're going to talk about? What I wanted to really bring together was the very essence of, these can all be seen as separate, and these can all be, you can resonate to them, because your individuality can resonate to the individual aspects of that particular subject or concept or whatever, premise. And I believe is so important at the moment to be aware that that's what's happening, and that if you're resonating to science or spirituality or religion, that it's okay for others to resonate to something else, because the biggest part of this is that we are all one. With everything going on at the moment, where so much is trying to segregate us, and we are all one, and it's okay for us to have a different concept, premise, or belief system than somebody else. It's just their flavor for the moment. They're eating Chinese and you're eating Mexican, you know, like,
talking
and it's
yesterday.
restaurant.
When you and I were talking yesterday, Elizabeth, and I was saying to you about my experience with connecting with Indigenous culture in the last 12 months, and how it's almost a daily practice, and certainly when I'm doing healings or meditations, for me to connect with the original custodians of the land that I'm on and do my own version of their practice of honouring those original healers and asking their permission and their for their guidance. And every time I talk about, like even now, my energy drops down and I feel grounded and supported and whole. And that's what resonates with me right now. So that's my truth in this now moment.
Yeah. It's so true. It opens up, isn't it? Like we were talking about the birthing tree in my backyard. Yeah. It's beautiful when you can, like, and just from a human evolution process, this is so where it's at is we've had all this segregation, we've had all of these flavors of everything, and you know, like, and now it's that recognition that it is all the one thing, and to let go of all of that, so that limitation that we've got, and to love each other as if you know, wish
the
to
right
be
and
loved.
wrong of it.
Yeah.
Completely. So I guess in terms of some like key things that I think are helpful for people in allowing themselves to entertain this area from a place of non-judgment is the recognition, because what we embrace, typically we've found more reward, comfort, or pleasure in, right? It's given us something, or a sense of wholeness, or a sense of being, and we tend to embrace that, a sense of belonging. And then anything that we turn away from at a nervous system level is because our experiences to date has meant that we've encountered more pain than pleasure from it. So we're going to turn away from that. And so hence why that's a really pivotal point in terms of, you know, so if I speak from my own personal experience with religious kind of content or experiences, I've got some really beautiful memories of going to church with my grandmother, which was a sense of connectedness, very safe. You know, my family is fairly well all baptized Presbyterian. So from my experience of that, they're a little bit more loosey-goosey, so we don't kind of like get too caught up on things, which suits me as like an individual. And then, you know, I'm sure I've got loads of people that would, you know, be very upset with the sentence that I just said. Anyway, that's my truth. And anyway, so, and then, you know, I remember asking these pivotal questions about, you know, where did the earth come from? Where did humans come from? And I was probably about 6. And Mum giving me both the creation story and the Big Bang story at the time, and just kind of entertaining that as a kid. And so it was all very gentle, right? And so, yeah, and I went to a Presbyterian school. So in comparison to my peers who were at Catholic schools, our version of religious studies was very different to their version of religious studies. Like, we'd go and watch a movie, you know, once a fortnight and have some kind of, you know, little chat about it, you know, so very different from a very kind of, these are the indoctrinations, this is what you garner from each piece. Yeah. So I've always had a certain level of freedom in entertaining all of this. But that's when it becomes really pivotal to reflect back on that developmental period, generally around 12 or 13, where we start to engage in moral reasoning. All right. So it will be at that point of moral reasoning where we go, is this right or wrong, as to whether religion caused us more pain or pleasure, as in belonging, reward, connectedness, or, well, like I'm learning about the wars, I'm learning about how people will treat one another if they hold these things too tightly, typically as to where the pendulum will have swung at that point. And the same with science. It's kind of, do I get a sense of belonging, understanding, reasoning? Am I able to engage my mind in a way that feels good? Versus, God, that seems boring. I'd rather turn away from it and engage in other things. So we've kind of got to put that
and spirituality, right?
Yes,
because
completely.
Spirituality also has the different segregations within it, like
yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
All of them have.
Yes. So unpacking that for ourselves and going, I thought I held these beliefs about these 3 subjects because they were my own. Unless you have consciously created your beliefs around these things, it's far more likely that it's because one will have caused you more pleasure, one will have caused you more pain, and therefore we align ourselves with the one that's caused more pleasure and turn away from the one that's caused more pain because we haven't expanded up enough to go to both of your points. It's all the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the one thing. And that's not to say that we've got to engage in all these subjects with the same vigor, but in recognizing that it's those things that that it is just oneness, and then the things that are that dance between us and the universe, paying attention to our intuition and an openness to go, that thing just glittered, or I feel magnetized in some kind of way. There's something there for me. And then that's when you're on your journey, your path of self-evolution. And as you do that, and that thing glistens or pulls you, and you feel a sense of connectedness, that's the conscious creation of your belief system, and when you become the embodiment based on your own truth. So for me, things
spiral, right? It's a spiral.
Exactly.
It's not a linear thing. It's a spiral, and
exactly.
It's a beautiful that glimmering that you were just talking about, like watching that in my own life of moments of getting right into quantum physics, moments of getting right into epigenetics, moments of being like, I was a Christian. I actually threw out a whole heap of my spiritual books and tarot cards and all sorts of stuff because I went down that path, and then went a bit crazy, because I went into my own concepts of the tree of life and the tree of good and evil, and then went not crazy, but I definitely had a moment of like, where am I with it? And then had another epiphany from Jesus, like, it's okay, I've been with you all this time, and like total bawling, like, oh my gosh, I'd gone down a path of somebody else instead of my own internal knowing. And it's so important, isn't it?
Exactly.
I accidentally have someone booked in at 10 o'clock, so I'm going to have to get going. But how is everyone's week? Like, you're having time off over Christmas? I've already texted her and told her that I'm going to be a couple of minutes late. How's your week? You guys are going to keep this going next Monday. So are you able to... we'll just record it and put it into my team will be able to put it into Women of Light.
Yeah, I will Zoom it and stream it live into Soul Friends, and it's a public group, so we'll be able to share it.
Oh, awesome.
The girls will be able to share it into Women of Light, like, as it's happening.
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, so it'll be at the same time. And
Awesome. I've got some new things happening. I've had some major downloads over the last couple of days, and we're stepping up next rung on the ladder in Women of Light. I've just got some great ideas to put forth, so there'll be more. Just really, really making it more holistic in there than what it has been, and so I'm really looking forward to that for 2022. So watch out for that if anyone's watching.
happening.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so everyone's. I just want to say happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I hope I don't speak to either of you in between. And
Absolutely. Likewise. Merry
Enjoy
Christmas and Happy New Year. Yeah.
looking forward to catching up next year.
Beautiful.
It's been a beautiful year, and
It has.
this podcast has been such a blessing for me.
Me
Yeah.
too. Thank you for inviting me in.
And I'd love to hear from our listeners, you know, what sort of value you get from it, if you're enjoying what we're talking about, if there's anything in particular that you would love for us to talk about. We're open, even if we don't know about it, we'll go and do some research and come up with our own thoughts around it and share it with everyone. So looking forward to sharing next year.
Beautiful.
See ya.
Likewise.
Bye.